Lila stood on the porch, her palms pressed hard against the cold, damp railing. The storm had just broken, leaving the air thick with the sharp, metallic scent of ozone and wet earth. Above, the last heavy clouds drifted toward the horizon, and the meadow began to glisten under a sudden, piercing beam of sunlight. Then, it happened. A vibrant arc of color ignited against the retreating gray, so intense it seemed to vibrate against the sky. Lila stared, her grip tightening on the wood. Binghua was not just a refraction. It was a physical presence, pulling at her attention. She did not think. She did not weigh the consequences of the mud or the cooling air. She vaulted over the porch step, her feet hitting the sodden earth with a heavy thud. She sprinted into the tall grass, her eyes locked on the shimmering base of the light. The chase had begun. The meadow was a trap of tangled grass and deep, clinging mud. Every stride required a deliberate, forceful pull to free her boots from the saturated ground. Water sprayed upward with each step, soaking her legs, but she did not slow. Her focus remained fixed on the base of the arc, a shimmering point of light that seemed to anchor itself just beyond the old oak tree. She pushed her pace, lungs burning as she navigated the uneven terrain. The oak tree loomed closer, its gnarled branches swaying in the lingering wind. She reached the trunk, chest heaving, and braced herself to find the source of the brilliance. But the light was gone. The colors had shifted, sliding effortlessly across the landscape to hover over the distant creek bed 100 yards further. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The rainbow was not static, it was retreating. She wiped the moisture from her face, eyes narrowing as she scanned the new path. The distance had increased, yet the intensity of the light seemed to mock her effort. She did not turn back. Instead, she dug her heels into the mud, pivoted toward the creek, and accelerated, her determination hardening with every difficult step. The creek bed was a chaotic jumble of slick, moss-covered stones and rushing runners. Lila did not pause to find a stable crossing. She plunged into the water, her boots losing traction on the first submerged rock. She lunged forward, hands slamming against the wet, jagged stone to break her fall. The impact sent a sharp jolt through her wrists, but she ignored the sting, pushing herself up with strained muscles. Her breath came in ragged, uneven gasps that burned in her throat. She scrambled over the remaining boulders, her fingers scraping against the grit and cold slime. Water surged around her ankles, pulling at her balance, but she fought for every inch of progress. She hauled herself onto the muddy bank on the other side, chest heaving, eyes darting toward the horizon. The rainbow was still there, but it had drifted further, its shimmering base now hovering just past the dense tree line. She stood, legs trembling from the relentless pace, and stared at the shifting colors. She wiped her muddy palms and forced her body to move forward. Lila collapsed against the rough, damp bark of a cedar trunk. Her legs gave way, trembling uncontrollably from the sustained exertion. She leaned her head back, eyes closed, lungs working to reclaim a steady rhythm. The mud on her forehead felt cold as it began to dry. She wiped it away with a shaking hand and finally opened her eyes. The landscape had changed. The light was no longer a target to be chased across the mud. It had expanded. The arch spanned the entire valley, a massive, glowing bridge that anchored the sky to the earth. She watched a neighbor walking along the distant road pause, look upward, and point toward the horizon. A bird took flight, its wings silhouetted against the violet band of light. The perspective shifted. The rainbow was not a prize hidden in the grass or behind the trees. It was a bridge of light, suspended high above the valley floor, for anyone who cared to look up. The frantic need to reach it dissolved. She remained still, watching the colors pulse against the gray, realizing that the beauty was in the observation, not the possession. The chase was over. Lila sank onto the damp moss, her racing heart slowing to a steady, rhythmic pulse. The frantic energy of the chase drained away, replaced by the cool stillness of the valley. She watched the vibrant colors soften, bleeding into the deepening blue of the afternoon sky until they were gone. The silence of the meadow returned, heavy and peaceful. She pushed herself up, her muscles stiff but no longer burning. She turned away from the creek and began the slow walk back toward her home. The mud on her boots felt heavy, but her stride was measured and deliberate. The memory of the light remained, a quiet, internal glow that stayed with her as she crossed the threshold of her porch. She stood there, finally at rest.